Hello friends, and welcome to Art Visionary Introduction to Nested Compositions and Composition Envelopes. An introduction to a very deep subject. If it's not all as bright as day from the very beginning, don't worry. Just flow with this presentation and we'll touch on some examples and case studies where I'll do my best to make it clear to you what I'm talking about. I think we've all had the experience of seeing a painting that it's grand, beautiful, but it's also very detailed. And within those details, we get lost and transfixed by all of these little sub-stories, like little narratives, and keep us entranced by the depth of that world that is being described in the painting. So if I think of artwork that has this kind of quality, I might think of Hieronymus Bosch's Garden of Earthly Delights. I might think of Bruegel's Tower of Babel. I might think in the contemporary art world of the work of Chris Cooksey. If I was thinking about the symbolist works of Gustave Moreau or William Blake, all of these paintings have worlds within worlds, fractals within fractals, and I find this kind of painting very satisfying. Okay, so the question is, where to begin? Where do we begin in creating our own work of magnitude? And having worked on several large works, there's been a couple of principles that have been coming up for me repeatedly that I think are very useful and that I'd like to share with you. So the first of these concepts is called composition envelope. Now, what is an envelope? An envelope is something that you put other things in. It's a container. So you can think of the main dominant shapes of the painting as being the envelopes for smaller compositions, or what we call nested compositions, because they're nested inside of other compositions. So the composition envelope can begin with the most simple doodle, the most simple shape. It can be a silhouette of a figure or a tree. It can be the shape of any recognizable object. In Bruegel's case, the composition envelope on the Tower of Babel painting is obviously the tower itself. It's a big cone. It just can contain a lot of other details, so it ends up feeling very complex as a painting. But the shape itself is not complex. Now, what this does is, for our artwork, it helps the painting retain an identity, a strong concept, a strong look. If a painting is just made of details, then it turns to mush from a distance. It has no real identity. But when you have a strong, identifiable shape silhouette, then that holds at a distance. It retains its readability. So really what we're doing is we are taking this principle of general to specific, which is so important in painting, and applying it to composition. So as you can see with Babylon, I began with the most basic shapes: tower, lady, tree, book, and then And then only then was I kind of freed to go into all the details and the little sub-narratives I could explore by having a strong composition envelope. By defining that first through the morning practice that I'm going to introduce, we can then build upon that framework very successfully. Let's look at some more examples to get even more clear on this. I'm going to begin by reading some of the words of Gustave Moreau in a letter that he wrote to his patron for the painting, but in the end he didn't send. A towering, colossal architecture rises up with neither foundation nor summit, its sacred flora quivering and alive against the sombre blue solitude of the sky. Here, the oft-invoked God appears in his still veiled splendor. Semele, thunderstruck, dies, and yet regenerates, purged in the holy fire, and purified by the sacred overflowing, and with her a cloven-hoofed angel, a spirit of earthly love. Through this holy exorcism and enchantment, all are transformed into a higher and purer ideal. The eternally sacred expands into the all, and the all, though not yet fully formed, gives praise to the one true light. Denizens of the water and woods, dryads, satyrs, and fauns are all overcome by ecstasy, love, and joy. Leaving behind their earthen beds, they rise up and assume new shapes as sacred beings in the celestial hierarchy. Two hierophants, flanking the throne with outspread wings, bow their heads with hallowed reverence before the god. Meanwhile, at the dais below, death and suffering form the tragic foundation to our human existence. Enshadowed by Jupiter's eagle, the great god Pan, symbol of our earthly predicament, lowers his brow in sad remembrance of our enslaved and exiled state. In the darkness below, beings of mystery and shade mingle in the depths. These indecipherable enigmas, children of Erebus and night, are those unformed entities who still await their life in the light. Sleeping in the lowest depths of the abyss are the creatures of darkness, hydras, lemurs, griffins, hybrid in form, ill-fated spirits ruled over by the silent moon, and Hecate of the oblique gaze. Finally, two great sphinxes, one facing the past and the other the future, stand as guardians to this herd and their heavenly ascent, and contemplate each other with a smiling and hieratic stillness. In the case of Gustave Moreau's Jupiter and Semele, we have a very fascinating process at work, whereby Gustave Moreau gradually enlarged his painting from its initial dimensions. So, in some ways we could say the initial painting, the first version of the painting, is nested within a second version where he folded out the wings of the canvas to enlarge the composition, and then in the third stage he went as far as sewing on a whole new area to the bottom of the canvas and creating an underworld. There is also an underlying armature, a geometric scaffolding that was developed as the painting grew, remained consistent as the painting was folded out and increased in scale. So we can see with this magnificent painting, all of this detail manages to fold into itself to maintain a harmony. So we come back to that old maxim of art, general to specific, always considering the overall harmony of the macrocosm and then moving into the microcosm. With Alex Gray's Cosmic Christ, we can see here that he was inspired by the traditional egg tempera icons of Christ, and the rough layout of the main figure is very, very similar to a medieval Christian egg tempera icon. But he has psychedelicized this icon by meshing it with the image of a toroidal field, a field of energy that is tiled or full of these apertures, whereby he can nest in every one of these apertures a different facet of the world, showing how the Christ is an oversoul throughout humanity. Okay then, now we've checked out the introductory material and gotten fueled up on inspiration and ideas for our ambitious project, our monumental work. We're going to introduce the practice that I call morning dream catching. And what this is going to do is focus us on making a very bold, simple design for our compositional envelope, before we get into all of the details of the nested compositions and so on. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you soon.